G'day, ZiggyD here with another Path of Exile guide. Today I'm going to talk about base attack speed on weapons. If you've been unsure about the importance of this stat and haven't been able to decide which attack speed is best for your build, then hopefully this will provide some answers. So, generally speaking, faster attack speed weapons are more popular than slower ones. Shooting faster is more fun and can make for very high DPS, and that's why the Thicket bow is so popular when there are at least 7 other bows that high level players could choose from. However, faster attack speed isn't always best for your character. In the background footage I'm doing some progression with my Ice Shot Ranger from the current build of the week, and you'll notice that I'm using a death bow, which has an attack speed of 1.1 and is one of the slowest bows in the game. I didn't just choose this randomly either, as I had access to a good Grove bow as well, which has a massive attack speed of 1.55. The slower attack speed was a way better choice for my character at the time, and depending on how my build plays out, that may continue as well. So let's start out by going over some of the reasons why you might opt for a slower weapon over a faster one. But first, one thing I want to explain is that higher attack speed isn't always higher DPS. Base weapons feature a damage range that takes into account their rate of fire, so while the death bow attacks slower, it hits harder when it does. This means that the DPS between similar level bows with different attack speeds is often pretty comparable. There are exceptions to this rule however, and it's usually when you have a lot of whole number damage bonuses from other gear. The faster you attack, the more chances you have to apply these damage bonuses. If you're looking at the base weapon damage and any percent physical or elemental roll bonuses, then the DPS will be comparable between different attack speed weapons. On the other hand, if your damage is mainly coming from integer damage bonuses like 10 to 20 physical damage and 1 to 20 lightning damage, then the higher attack speed will usually result in more DPS. So the next consideration in choosing attack speed is mana cost, and this is the main reason you see me using a death bow over a Grove bow in the background footage. Mana costs per attack on your skills don't change with your attack speed, but overall mana costs per point of damage do. This means that everything else being equal, a faster attack speed weapon will consume more mana for less damage than a slower attack speed weapon. At this point in my Ice Shot Ranger's progression, she's suffering from some pretty serious mana problems, and so I simply can't support the mana costs of a Grove bow, even though it may give me higher DPS. Now I just want to say that this issue of mana costs should only be a concern while leveling, as any good build should aim to be able to support any attack speed with its mana leech and mana regen alone, or alternatively with life regen and lifesteal if it's a blood magic character. Hopefully I can get my mana and regen to a level where I'm not forced to use a slower weapon to support the cost of my skills. So the next consideration when choosing an attack speed is critical hit elemental effects, especially shock and burn. The way that elemental effects work in Path of Exile is that their severity is based on the amount of damage dealt with that attack in comparison to the enemy's life pool. This means that single higher damage attacks are going to result in a longer shock, a more damaging burn, and a longer freeze. Now for the freeze effect, this isn't such a big deal because a short freeze can be reapplied over and over with a fast attack speed to keep mobs frozen for a long time. Burn, however, has its damage and length decided by the damage of the attack, and multiple smaller burns do not stack in severity. As such, larger, more infrequent hits are going to result in better burn effectiveness. Shock is a little weird in this regard. It should function similarly to freeze in theory, with multiple faster attacks resulting in more stacks and better effectiveness. But, in practice, shorter length shocks from faster attacks can make it difficult to keep multiple shock stacks up on your enemies. Another issue is that shocks of a duration less than 300 milliseconds are completely ignored. There is a lot more to consider if you're trying to make an effective shock uptime build, but suffice to say for this video that extremely high attack speed can result in poor shock effectiveness. The final consideration when deciding on your preferred base weapon attack speed is that some skills don't even use attack speed at all, or that they don't use it in a very beneficial way. The best example of this is the melee skill Sweep, which has a set attack speed and cannot be modified by any other source of attack speed. This means that slower, harder hitting weapons are much better for this skill, and that's the reason the Karui Maul with its 0.95 attack speed is reasonably popular. Its slow attack speed is irrelevant when used with this skill, and it has one of the highest base damages in the game. So these are the main considerations I've come across: DPS calculations, mana costs, crit effects, and skill choices. If you know anything else I may have missed, please let me know. Hopefully you guys have found this helpful and now have a better idea of what weapon types to go for in your build. That's it for now, I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.